So, and I have a number of people that wanted to hear about how to do recruiting that could not attend today. So I know usually for our conversation pieces, I only do the recording when we are having presenters in. I'm going to go ahead and record the first part of this, and then like 3/4 of the way through, we can turn it off. So if there's any conversations you guys want to have that you don't really want to feel like you're talking and it's being recorded forever and posted publicly, you'll have some time for some of that interactive time. Just help me remember to stop recording at that point. Just quick way, welcome everyone. We always want to welcome everybody in, and I'm glad you guys are here. I know everybody is so busy and is running crazy, and there's a lot going on. Not that there isn't a busy time of year, but right now there's a lot of recruiting and stuff, and probably a lot of you are getting ready to take some time away from your traditional work to do CTAT and coming up, and so that, a lot of times we have to front load extra work to make the time for that. So appreciate you taking the time to do this. Few updates. This came out actually this morning. So if you are not on this piece of listserv information that comes out from TEA, I just wanted to let you know, it gives you the specifics that live to it. Some of you cover multiple of these items. You're not just CTE, but if there were something specific to the Perkins, I believe they would add an additional link. And so this website link is maybe something that becomes important to you. It's their the Federal Compliance Division website, but they're starting to put out FAQs because there's a lot of questions coming in on changes and implementations. I have not, this literally released just about an hour ago. So I have not gone through all of these, but what I would expect, a lot of the FAQs right now are specific to how the COVID changes are affecting some of these things. A lot of people have questions about how, if this is a rule that's come, or if this is a new piece of guidance that's come out that can be done because of COVID, does it apply to? And look at any of the others on the list, including Perkins, because there are some things that the state can make changes to or update guidance on, and there's some things they can't because the rules are federal unless the changes become federal. We ran into that last year. A lot of people kept saying, well, how come the Perkins funds aren't going to be able to be rolled over and used into the next year? TEA couldn't do anything about that. They didn't have the rights to make those changes. That had to be a congressional change at the federal level. And so it would have had to have been voted on and made as a change. And, there was way too many things they were voting on. Being able to carry over a little bit of Perkins money in different places was not something that was going to make the list of things that during them trying to go through elections and all of the other COVID responses and stuff, that they were going to ever be able to do that. And so I think that a lot of these FAQs probably are pieces of some of that, but it may be things that are specific to, some of the traditional language that's in there. So I just wanted you to have this. And when I post this, it may not be something you need to use all the time, but when I post the PowerPoint, you'll have it there to go back to, so you can remember, where you could get to it if you needed to use it. This was in the newsletter, but I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of focused on this a little bit, that A&M Engineering and the Department of Education, they got some federal grant money, and they're working together in partnership to figure out what some of the skills gaps are. And they're doing that here across the state. And they're doing, they are virtual, but it's kind of like when TEA did the listening tour and they went around the state to different regions and did them focused on the region, because what is needed and what parts of your economy look like are different as you move from one region of the state to another. And so what we may have for manufacturing here may look very different than what they have in Houston at the coastline. So there are 2 dates that are available that are North Texas focused. It's not anything that costs you anything. It's just something you can get on. It's also something that if you want to share this with like your industry partners and let them know, because what they're really trying to get is both academia and industry feedback on, where are needs, for our students and how can they go forward and address them. So this is kind of that first piece of going through that. It was something that they were approved to get the money for back in December. So they're in the early process of this. but it may roll into changes that we see for our CTE programs at the state level. So if you want to kind of be hearing what's going on with this, or have people that fall into this. So a lot of you have some really strong business and industry partners that are linked to your programs. If you have anybody that would fall into these areas, please let them know this so that they have the opportunity to have their voice be heard in this process if they would like to. And then kind of what our focus was for today, and we talked a little bit about this at our big overall meeting, and that recruitment really it's the lifeblood of CTE. CTE classes are electives, and when I was managing staff and even as a teacher, when I talked to other people and I would hear grumblings about I can't stand doing those recruitment days, it takes me away from my class and some of those different things. Teachers really always need to understand that CTE are elective classes. There are a few of them that count for core credit, but overwhelmingly our programs are elective classes that students get to choose. And if a student doesn't choose them and enter the programs, then the program's no longer needed. And the teacher who holds the job that is tied to that program may not be needed. It is their responsibility to help ensure that their programs first draw students in, that their students are successful in their programs, and that they are actively recruiting those. And not just actively recruiting, a select group of students they might like in their classes, but all students. Are they welcoming all of your sub-pops, your non-traditionals? If it is a traditionally male field, are they welcoming the females into their programs? Are they inviting them in? Are they actually going out and actively recruiting for that? For all the sub-pops that exist in your district, be that low socioeconomic or your EL students, your SPED students, all of those students are welcomed into CTE and should be provided the opportunities to be successful in CTE. And so if your programs are not doing that, that actually in an MOA that is exactly what they're looking for. Those are Office of Civil Rights violations if people are not making sure that those opportunities are there and that there are not barriers that exist. And sometimes the barrier can be as simple as the students just don't feel welcome there. I don't think that teacher really likes to have girls in his class. I don't feel comfortable there. I don't want to, so I'm not going to go there. Or, that teacher doesn't really do what needs to be done to meet IEPs. And so word gets around. Some of the very best recruitment tools you will ever have in the world of education are successful students that are in the program sharing by word of mouth, sharing with their families, sharing with their friends. And your teachers that do a great job in the classroom, the students always know it and will flock to those. And so at the administrative level, we have to put in mechanisms to assist our teachers so that if that is not where they are, we move them to that point. If they came from industry and they know their content really well, but they don't have pedagogy because they have not had any opportunity to go through that, and they don't understand how to support appropriately their EL students. They don't know how to, implement an IEP with fidelity. Then we need to make sure we do some of those things, because that stuff is the backbone of your programs before you actually actively go out to recruit. Those things are recruitment is a byproduct of the success and the popularity of those programs for your students. But then, beyond that, once they are successful, welcoming environments, if a student doesn't know about it, then it's as if it doesn't exist. Or if they see a name and they don't understand what it is. And so, some of our programs have some names. One that always kind of pops in my head that is a bit of a struggle sometimes for students is healthcare informatics. Well, how many 8th graders, when they're looking at creating their 4-year plan, their PGPs, actually know what the heck that means? And so you need to talk to them about that. Well, that's being in healthcare and being on the business side of things. You're not maybe, around the blood and you're not having to put your hands on patients to take care of them, but you're in that, if you have the heart and the drive to want to be in that type of field of work, but your skills and your comfort is working maybe with spreadsheets and working in the design aspect. There is huge opportunities in the world of managing all of the documents that are a part of healthcare. And a lot of our districts are offering that class. One of the things that I see a lot of times districts do to help the students understand that is they will change the name of the course when they put it out for a student to choose it to something that is going to draw the kids in, a name that sounds more exciting or a name that is a little bit more understood by students and in that common language. The one thing I would caution you on is if you are doing that, make sure a piece of the name is the real TEA course name. So you might have healthcare informatics hyphen, and then put something that's a name in that's a bit of a descriptor. Don't just get rid of the actual name, because the actual name of the course is what needs to land on the students' transcripts. And when they transfer from one place to another and it goes through TREX, it needs to be the actual course that exists in Texas that everybody is coming of. It also helps to keep you from having issues with your parents. You know, they look at the student's report card or transcript and they're like, what the heck is this course that you're in? I don't even know what that is. And the kid goes, I don't know. I don't take that class, because that's not the name of the class as they know it, even though it is their class. So just kind of as you're creating recruiting materials and you're providing some of that clarification for students, don't change things up and take away the actual TEA names of things, because that can cause a whole new set of problems. So you want to make sure you kind of think through some of those things as you work through the process. I have links here. The Grapevine Colleyville is the video that we showed a little bit of at last week's meeting, at our big meeting, and that Candace shared about them doing that with the drone, followed their students around, but we only saw a little bit of a clip and you didn't really hear what the students were saying. So I will post this PowerPoint after the meeting so you can look at it. So if you want to kind of go back and watch that a little bit. I wanted to show you another sample. And Birdville, what I've done is pull up their website. And so they have some things that they do. One is, this is done at the big, some things that are done early in the year and that are posted, updated for every year in Reside. And so they do their program videos and it goes over all of their programs. So it's not just done right before the students take the classes. It's there anytime a parent wants to get on. If there's a new student during the course of the school year that transfers into the district, it's something that's always posted and they update it yearly. And when they update it, they don't have to change the entire thing every time. They just have to put in if there is, additional courses, changes in names, change in requirements from the state or something, so they can tweak it each year. They don't have to start from scratch every year. And they do this through their audio video department internally. They have done a CTE virtual recruitment though this year, and they did a similar to Grapevine Colleyville. They did a tour. So Bechtel is their tech center. Now, I know my smaller districts, you don't have tech centers, but you have CTE classes embedded into your high school. So you may be touring just like the CTE classrooms that are in your building versus, an entire building so that people could have access to the stuff. Another thing that is a great recruitment tool, they do something called this Q3 catalog. And this is also updated yearly. And no preview, well, download. Should have downloaded this first. But this is something that's used, it can be used with students and parents. It can be used in arts, but it's also really good like when you're working with your industry and your community people. And it gives, some of the general, it's a condensed version. It doesn't go over every single course they offer and all of that, but it's more of a highlights thing. And so it goes over, some general stuff on programs of study, gives information on graduation plans, lists of the courses that are offered. And then like each year they give out, some awards to community partners and different things. These are classes within the different pathway program, well, the career areas, not necessarily just the individual programs of study. And then they highlight throughout, these are students from last year each time. So for this year's program, because they made it over the summer, it's last year's students. So it's students who, were in all of these different career and technology student organizations and have done. And so these are just really good ongoing tools, because recruiting for your programs, it's not just your students often that have to be sold on your programs. It is your parents and your community members that you need to support your programs, that you need to have, kind of sold on your programs. And they highlight their student organizations, and it gives basic contact information. And so that is, so there's just some samples of some different things there. Other districts do this well. These were just two that talked about them at last week's meeting, and that I happen to know well on some of what they do. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of sampling, kind of food for thought before we move to you guys talking. So this was meant to be a collaborative day for you guys to talk through what you're doing. So a few questions I thought we should kind of frame that with is, you need to think about, what have you already done in the past that still works in a COVID year? I mean, a lot of you do recruiting every year. And so what have you historically been doing? What did you do last year? Well, last year's not even a good example either, because last year was a COVID year. The year before, 2 years ago, some of you are brand new to your district, so you maybe don't know what they did 2 years ago, or maybe you've heard from somebody, you've asked around, or you came across some files or some flyers or something, and you haven't done that. What have you already done this year, and what are you working on? A couple of things I tell you is, recruiting really shouldn't be a one and done. I mean, some people do some great, they do a big full out recruiting day, or a showcase day, or showcase evening where parents can come and attend to that and all of that. But it isn't just the big stuff. Sometimes it's the little ongoing things. And one of the things that I think COVID is going to have helped make it a greater comfort level and understanding of how to use this is that I think it's really beneficial for your younger students, especially if you have a college and careers class, or you're doing career exploration through another course in middle school, and they're learning about all of the careers, to be able to get a glimpse into those high school programs that would be interesting to them. It also works really well. So once upon a time, and this is going back a number of years, because I've been out of the classroom for quite a while, but when I was teaching forensics, I knew that the students that were going to take my forensics as seniors, as a fourth year science, had to take 3 other sciences first. And so I would invite the biology teachers at the feeder schools to have a glimpse into my classroom. And so I wasn't even using Zoom back then, and we were using other capabilities, but I would set it up so that they could, when I was doing a really cool lab, or my kids were doing something that was kind of fun, I could let those teachers know, and they could just pop in for a few minutes with their kids and show it on their screen, whether it was part of their warm up when they were taking attendance, and they could kind of get in to see, and it gave them a taste of something that would excite them that they might want to take, because that was going to be my target audience. And so you can do some of those little things that are off and on throughout the year, not just on a one date, or just that week before students choose their classes. And then I also wanted you to think a little bit about, what challenges is it that you're having? And so as you're trying to figure out how to do this right now, what are your struggles? Because maybe somebody else has figured out a way around that. So I'm going to, if you want to take a picture of that to help kind of you kind of think about what some of the things we mentioned were, because I'm going to put it up back so that we can see everybody's faces, so that you can start sharing what you're doing and asking each other's, and let's work together as a group and see if we can help expand everybody's ideas and thoughts on how they might go about doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. And go ahead and let you go. Who wants to be brave and get started first, and either talk about what they've already done, or what you're working on, what you've historically done, and you're looking for some help to morph it into something you can do this COVID year, or who has a challenge with how they're figuring out doing it, that they want to see, kind of use the brain trust of the group to problem solve.
I don't like awkward silence, so I'll go first.
Thank you, Leanne.
So I think I mentioned this last week. We normally do 8th grade tours, which of course we couldn't. So we made little program and study videos that are on our website. So those have been good. Our AV kids made those for us, and they're short to keep attention span. We kind of use the YouTube model of nobody wants to watch a video that's longer than 5 minutes. So we grouped the career clusters together and did those. So as far as our career pathways 8th graders, those were the kids that would have come over and toured the building. I did a Teams, because we don't use Zoom, we use Microsoft Teams.
Right.
I Teamsed into all the classes at the same time across the whole district, which was really cool. And I was just available. I did a little mini presentation with them about Ben Barber, and we talked a little bit about, their opportunities, and I showed them where to find things on our website to talk to their parents about. And then I got some really good Q&A. It was really funny. The kids would put questions in the chat. They wouldn't necessarily, ask it.
Yeah.
And unmute themselves, but they would put questions in the chat and I would answer them. So I thought it went pretty well. We did another parent meeting last night on Teams. We didn't have a huge turnout, but we recorded it and I posted it on the website. If you were not able to attend, here was our parent information meeting. So if y'all have any other ideas, I would love to hear them.
That's great. And just for those, so not everybody knows who everybody is. So Leanne is with Mansfield. And so when she says Ben Barber, that is their tech center. Yes. And so their high schools can travel to their tech center. And so like a lot of our bigger districts, some of their CTE courses are on their home campuses and their more advanced courses are at Ben Barber. And so she was able to reach out and get those. And I know some of you are in small schools that, all of your kids are all in one building, or you have a separate middle school and high school, but and then some of you have multiple campuses. So I know that setup is a little bit different for some of you.
Sure.
One of the things she mentioned is that they did it by individual career pathways. Long before this, something that I did, and I don't know that this works this year, but I want to throw it out because my kids had so much fun with it and it worked well. Years ago when I was in the forensics classroom, since I was at a tech center, my kids came from 3 different high schools. When we got to like STAR testing time and things like that, they did not all come on the same schedule. If one school was a little slower getting their testing day done, their kids never made it. Other kids did make it. So ahead of that, I put my kids in groups. Usually I cross grouped them so that they didn't get to stay with just their own high school. But for that, I made a group project as actually a course assignment. And they they were with the kids from their own high school so that I didn't have to worry about who came which day and which group was there. And over like a 10-day time, they had to create a commercial for forensics based on something that they had learned and we had done, whether it was a project or a skill in that course through the year. So some chose, to do a blood splatter. Some did things about fingerprinting and stuff. And the kids, some of them were great. And so, I gave little, kind of, Academy Awards to the groups that put out the ones that we chose were the best. I asked some other people to look at them and did that. But the ones that were really good, I posted those on my website. So anybody that came to my website got to see those different things. You just have to, the one thing I caution is if you're going to have your kids do a project that they're videoed in, and if you're going to post it publicly, make sure you have, whatever your district requires for you to have for signed releases on their images being able to be out. But beyond that, they did the work. I mean, it was a great project. It worked really well for that kind of goofy time of year when, and that was back in that year that we had to take 10 STAR exams. And I'm old, and although that isn't that long ago, but some of you remember the horrible time frame when our kids spent what felt like about a month and a half doing standardized testing that year before they went in and the legislator changed how many tests they had to take. And so it took a time that I would have struggled to get grades, that I would have had a hard time with activities, that was really weird, and turned it into something the kids had a blast with. And I wish I still had some of them that I had, that years later that I had saved those on something that I had, because there were some, like I had a group that they did them is each of the characters was one of the characters from the different insurance commercials. So the different bad guys, one was Jake from State Farm and one was Flo, and they had dressed it to look like the different things. I had some that did some of my autopsy stuff, but then they ended it with turning it into a version of Thriller and had, Michael Jackson music playing in the background, and all the autopsy victims stood up and started moving like they were alive. I mean, these kids, they were coming after school. They were asking to stay late to do some of this. And and then not only did it work for them, but it ended up long range benefiting me. I kept some of those things for multiple years after that on my website. And kids, when they would come to my class, go, we're going to get to do that project this year. Well, do we get to make our commercials? When do we do that? Well, not till the end of the year. And you actually know something about the class. You have to get through the class and know all of the things. And so that they don't have to be that you've hired a company to come in and professionally make videos of your programs. Sometimes those kids or your individual teachers can sell those programs way better than even if you did hire somebody and it was a very polished, professional looking video. Who else?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
All right. So obviously I'm new to the whole coordinator director position, especially when it comes to CTE at Little Elm. My predecessor had set up they called it Chart Your Course. And basically it was for the middle school rising freshmen to come, and it was almost like an open house. So they had the CTSOs there, they had the teachers talking about courses, and they even had some of their advisory boards there. Well, obviously that hasn't happened last year or this year because of COVID. And so it made me, I've started seeing the registrations, the enrollments starting to drop for next year in some of the classes. And so the whole recruitment idea had me start to think about the purpose of our middle school courses. And one of the things I'm looking at is sitting down with my middle school teachers and administrators and seeing how we can revamp, because I've got 4 CTE teachers on both of my middle schools, and seeing how we can revamp the entire middle school curriculum so that it truly acts as a recruitment and feed tool to the high school programs of study.
Yep.
Dr. Ayers, I'm so sorry. I have a response to that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did this a couple years ago, but we added general employability skills for CTE or we created a new sequence. And so normally 6th grade, the students will take computer enrichment and computer laboratory, which is a 6th grade tech apps course. It's not really, we don't fund it, but we support teachers in other ways for that. And then the sequence would be they take that 7th grade year, they take general employability skills. And that's here we have it as a middle school course for high school credit. And we've embedded a lot of the House Bill 18 standards in there to help support the counselors. And I think that's been a big benefit. And within that, we rewrote our curriculum to identify, because we have CTE pathways at every single or almost every single high school in Fort Worth ISD, and we're huge. So we have a lot of programs. And so the students will learn about the programs at their feeder high school, as well as our Gold Seal programs of choice, where they can apply to, especially if those programs aren't offered. So they're learning all the different and being assessed on it. So I think it really helps our counselors, and it helps them to kind of pre-decide before 8th grade year and creating their progression plans or their graduation plans and pathways decisions for 8th grade. And then 8th grade year, we have touch systems and professional communications, in which we've also enhanced that curriculum if it's offered at the middle school to embed even more of that. So the students already know their choices, their options, and we're hoping to do more vertical teaming. So with those teachers, so that they could meet with their feeder high school teachers to do,
That's cool.
videos and do more recruitment within the curriculum. But That's
Yeah.
we've revamped it. I think we started it last year. It's our
See,
first year.
when I started looking at our middle school programs, right now we're offering, other than investigating careers, which every middle school student in our district is required to take. Right now it's being offered in the 8th grade. And I pointed out to them, I'm like, that's kind of silly because half of your 8th grade will not have even had it before they have to register for high school. So I'm bumping that down to 7th grade. And then the only other CTE courses we're really offering is we're offering 3 of the Gateway courses and 3 of the Tech Apps courses that are more or less, the more I look at it, it's just engineering and computer science aligned. It's not helping my culinary arts. It's not helping my welding. It's not helping my health sciences. It's and it just kind of made me wonder why are we teaching all these extra courses at the middle school level if I'm only benefiting a couple of my 15 programs of study?
Vanessa, can I ask you a question
Uh-huh.
about, so you're doing 2 courses for high school credit in middle school, and one of those is in 7th grade, the general employability skills. Do those 7th grade grades count in their high school GPA? And have you had any problems with that?
No, we haven't so far. It started last year. I meet with the counselors regularly and I haven't heard anything. We just have to, I have to make sure on my end, because I do all the back end stuff in the district, to make sure the teacher is certified to teach that course. Because if the teacher is not certified, I think that's one of our policies. It cannot count for high school credit. So, but we haven't had any issues that I've heard of. We also offer touch systems, which is for high school credit, but also professional communications. We do also offer the middle school a career, but for some campuses prefer the semester in 7th grade. So we'd still offer investigating careers as well. But most of the campuses want the high school credit, and I haven't heard anything. But if something comes up, I'll definitely bring it forward.
That's one of the things that I I've been encouraging people to add general employability skills and professional communications in the middle school, but in your GPA, that's a local decision by your local school board. So that's different from one district to another. And so some districts, if they take those courses in middle school for high school credit, the credit goes forward, but the grade doesn't count in their high school GPA. Others it does. Some it does only if it's a core class. And so that looks different everywhere. But that was the one thing that when I encourage people to look at doing this, is to make sure that they are very upfront with the students and the parents, so that they know that middle school class is going to go with them. It's kind of like taking a college dual credit class as a senior and not thinking it makes that big a difference. And then you start college and you've already got a 1.6 GPA because that course, went with you to the college you went to. And so, making sure people are very upfront. And I think we lost Vanessa. It looks like she disappeared off the screen, but I think it's great. So a lot of people are looking at morphing. They're still doing the career exploration, but they're doing it through professional communications. The students, instead of it being them focusing on doing those different pieces of professional communications, the speeches and the writing and the different things, they can be doing all of that targeted to your different programs of study and to the careers that interest them. And then you can receive the high school credit. So if you don't have a lot of room in your schedule and you need the ProfCom to replace college and careers versus just push college and careers down and add it, it's a great way to do that. Same with general employability skills. I mean, when they're looking at those employability skills, then they can be looking at the actual employment that the employability skills are tied to, and look at your different areas.
I got my computer restarted. I didn't know if you asked me a question or if you were just reinstating. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries. We saw you pop up. No, I just was kind of, telling people that I recommend that they do some of what you're doing, but just always make sure they're very upfront if it's going to count in their high school, that the students and the parents are very aware of that, just like a dual credit college course counting, not just on their high school transcript, but going with them into the future.
I meet with counselors, we discuss that, and we also, it's included in our course catalog for if it's for middle school credit, what the requirements are.
So,
Sorry. Okay.
no, that's good. So what else? What other things are people doing, or what challenges are you having? What is it maybe you want to do, but you're struggling to figure out how to make it happen? And you think maybe somebody in the group has some ideas or some help for this?
I think they said not just I think students are probably the most powerful. Students who have been in the classroom have the most powerful impact in recruiting, but also we've revamped our advisory committee, and a lot of the industry folks are wanting to do more interaction. They're filling out a form, an engagement form, to see, like, because they were eager to reach out. I have no idea if it's because of COVID, but we've had advisories in the past, they've been successful, but they want to engage. And so whether it's virtual tours or even hiring our students, like we've had an abundance recently. And so we're trickling that down to the teachers and connecting those partners who really want to engage. But I think even the students hearing from industry directly, or having industry do virtual tours or something, even in the lower grades, from 8th grade on, or maybe even elementary, some just they may not have a work-based learning experience or available a spot, but they might want to reach, just to help talk about the almost like having a guest speaker, talk
Yes.
about the different careers.
I think that's a great idea and a great point, because as we saw last week at our director meeting, and the week before at our CTE coffee and conversation, we had my friend came in that they've started that trades organization, the AIT, and in the world of trades in Texas, they are overwhelmingly aging out. The average age in a lot of those careers is 60, and they're begging those people to stay because they don't have anybody to replace them. And so we've had, such a push for such a long time that all students need to go get a 4-year degree in order to be successful in life. And now all of a sudden we've got these middle skilled, areas. And, some of the ones that I gave as examples, and now I know COVID could have changed a little of this temporarily, but I'd worked with over the years, and we had set up and we're running an aviation maintenance technician program. The students were getting, out of their 2 years program, they were getting all but 2 classes that they needed completed before they left high school in order to sit for the AMT, the aviation maintenance technician certification. In the world of work here in the Metroplex, if you work for American Airlines, they are paying close to $60 an hour. It's $58.65, I think, an hour was their last advertised rate to pay for that job. And Southwest Airlines, it was over $120,000 a year for their salary. And so, that's not something that requires even a full 2-year degree, but they can get it done. And so in some of your districts have some of this. So Birdville ISD, which is where I came out of, they would pay for 1 full year of college at the community college at Tarrant County, because they used their gas and oil well money that came from the property to cover that. So the students, they only had 2 classes left they needed to finish to be able to take the AMT, but they could use that money for that college and get the next level up certification that was paired on top of that and made them even more marketable, and they could get that done in that next year. And so, there's a lot of stuff that our students, they're going to leave and be able to do those careers and make way more money than we did starting teachers with our 4-year degrees in doing that. And, so, and I know I'm preaching to the choir. For those of us who work in CTE, we know that their CTE has opportunities for our students, great opportunities. Well, we've now got trade organizations that are being put together that want to actively partner with the schools, because they know they've got to help change the perception, and they need to, put their hand out and reach down and to those students and lift them up into those industries. So Vanessa's right. I think we're starting to see some engagement from our industry partners, partly because they're getting a little bit panicked that they don't know what they're going to do. You're not going to be able to continue to run your plumbing company and your electrical companies if we don't start getting kids into apprenticeship programs and into some of these things. And we have a lot of kids that are in that engineering field, and they think they want to go to college and get an engineering degree. Not only is an engineering degree extremely tough to get, and the washout rate, I think, is like 80%. The colleges purposely wash out in those first 2 years of those programs students who start in them, and very small percentage end up making it all the way to that. But for every one engineer that most companies hire, they're going to hire 10 technicians. And a lot of times the technician work is the work our kids really want to do. And it's the stuff that they can be getting, a majority of those skills in some of your programs, in your manufacturing programs, in your engineering programs, in your robotics, in some of your IT programs. And so, but the kids, they don't know that. And so if they don't know it, they don't know what those programs can lead them to. And that, I think you're bringing the industry people in is kind of that final piece to help, full circle for them to understand, I start here, I can go here. If I want more education, I go here, and this is what I'm going to get to do in industry, and they get to see all of that. So I think that's a great idea, Vanessa.
Lisa, one of the things that we've been doing also is it's very similar to what you guys are doing, already talked about, as far as like the advisory boards and bringing them in, especially now with COVID, like remote marketing, but and then also the videos for showcases. But what we're in the process of doing right now is putting together a digital live binder for our counselors, because a lot of our counselors have face-to-face with just about every family and every student. And so a lot of that marketing gets lost on that one piece, where counselors can, the more they're educated, the more they understand what the program of study is about. Sometimes the name of the program of the study can be misleading to some degree, because when you say engineering, that is an enormous field. So you have to be a little bit more granular when it comes to engineering, because is it civil? Is it chemical? Is it electrical? There's all different kinds of engineers. So a lot of our counselors need to be a little bit more educated. So we're trying to give them some access to our programs of study, and then explain to them the sequencing of the course so they understand, what needs to be taken their freshman, sophomore, junior, senior years, what type of internships are available at the capstone level, because a lot of times counselors don't even know where the students get to go, other than the more larger footprints, like in our case in Burleson, an obvious footprint for our health sciences, Hughley Hospital. But in other cases, they don't know some of these advisory boards, and members. So we are going to also give them a list of what type of internships are available, so the student can understand, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, or I didn't know that was available, and those types of things. So I think a big piece, and not to, reiterate what you guys have already discussed with videos and advisory boards, I just feel like a lot of things are lost with the counselors. So, and as we all know, most counselors come from core, and so they don't know a whole lot about CTE unless they were a CTE teacher who went back and got their counselor degree or certification. And so they don't really know what to discuss or how to help that family.
I agree, Eric, and kind of say some of what we did. And now it was a bigger district. We have multiple campuses, so that in each campus had multiple counselors. We actually, out of our CTE funds, paid a stipend to have a CTE liaison counselor at each campus. And then we brought them in before the school year, and then brought them in quarterly throughout the school year, or each 6 weeks, at least one day, came for lunch. We fed them lunch and did a working lunch meeting, and kind of made sure that they knew things. We would invite at least once a year all the counselors to come and tour our advanced programs and take them around and kind of let them showcase the kids, kind of like you do with your 8th graders. But we had the counselors do that because, they very much, the counselors are kind of the gatekeeper of courses. Not that they mean to be a barrier or, to steer something, but that is where the final schedules are made from the students. I mean, it's where that happens. And so like he said, that if they don't know your program or they don't understand it, in some of your districts, you don't have a huge amount of CTE. That may not be a lot of courses you need to go over with them. Some places it's a lot of stuff, and it's very different, and it's different. What way it lays out at one campus looks a little different than the way it lays out at another campus. And if it's a middle school that feeds to two different splits and goes to different high schools, do they know the difference between one high school? What's at one high school? What's at the other? What's at the, we ran into the misconception when I was in Birdville is people thought CTE was our tech center. Well, that was only about a third of our CTE. Our CTE started in our middle schools, and then on our campuses, most of our business classes and marketing classes were on campuses. All of our principals, there was no principals classes offered at the tech center. They were just more the advanced things. It's easy for somebody to understand, oh, I saw that really cool, auto tech lab or the cosmetology lab, and they know what that is. But they had to start way before that. And they had to take other classes that were on their courses. And so making sure that your counselors understand that, and making sure that students and parents know CTE exists on the home campuses as well, or exists in middle school, and that you can get those head starts. Our students, some of our students, want to take lots of our stuff, but they're also in band, and they're, a football player, or they're on the volleyball team, and their schedules are tight, trying to fit things in. So being able to get that head start on some of those courses in 8th grade is a big help in letting you line that up. And then it also gives you that advertisement in those middle schools where the rest of the kids are starting to make those choices. And so, some of the way you lay your programs out can help. You definitely can help you feed your programs, and your counselors understanding that definitely can help with some of that. The progression of those courses is really important. One of the things when I think about challenges that I've been hearing for this year, and I started hearing it last year, our failure rates are through the roof in our districts because of COVID. We have a lot of students that are going to have to retake core courses that they are required to graduate. The more that happens, the less room in their schedules for your programs. So one of the other things that I would, want you to encourage your CTE teachers is that they're aware of that, and they know in any way that they're able to help students, whether it's they're part of your CTSOs and they're encouraging those kids to make sure they're passing everything else to continue to participate. Your coaches, make sure they're helping. They're your band directors, your choir directors, because a lot of times they're the people who the kids are going to actually kind of listen to. That kids need to know if you have to redo Algebra 1, that's a time slot that you lose for something you want to take. You probably don't want to take Algebra 1 twice, but you're going to have to do it if you didn't pass, or you're going to have to give up a period and be doing credit recovery periods versus getting to take an elective of something you want. And so, make sure that all your support staff, especially those ones who have that hook in those students and those relationships, really help them to understand that. But also make sure your CTE teachers are supporting core in their classes, that they're truly helping with those math skills and those reading and writing skills, because the students are going to do better with them, tied to their career choices and to to those projects that they're working on that mean something to them, than they are in isolation in their other courses. But your teacher, this is a really important time for your teachers to understand we only have positions for CTE staff if we have CTE students, and all of us have to do our part to ensure that the students can want to be in there and have the ability to be in there. So not only is your program enticing and welcoming and supportive, but that the kids are passing other things and they have room on their schedule to come in. And so, we really, if ever, we've always needed this to be a team effort, but certainly right now, that we need all hands on deck in supporting and trying to get us to where we need to be.
Guys, I had encouraged our teachers to do something as well that I think could be really effective. So having the teachers that teach the principals classes video chat in or video conference in with the advanced teachers classes, because kids are funny about oh, I don't know that teacher. I don't know if I want to take that teacher's class or not. I mean, it's so weird, but they are like that. And so if they can kind of build that relationship with that advanced teacher and know that, oh, that's the teacher I would have next year, and that teacher is welcoming them and asking them to come into their courses, I think that can do a lot. We did that last year with our business marketing and finance. And it's funny because a lot of the advanced kids that went into accounting, they remembered that teacher coming and recruiting them. And that was one of the main reasons they said they signed up for the class.
That not only is that great, but made me think of something else. Our principals classes, two things on our principals classes. One is they tend to be more dry than the advanced classes because they're not in a lab. They're not doing all of the, a principles of health science doesn't look the same as a health science practicum where they're getting to, go into a mock hospital room and move a patient's body and learn to do all those things. And so if they sign up for those principles classes, I think sometimes our kids are a little disappointed, a little discouraged because they want to immediately, it's like starting college and you want to be right in your, whatever your degree plan is, and you're taking all your introductory courses and to have to get those out of the way before you get to do the stuff you really want to do. Our principles classes are going to always be a little bit of that. So having those teasers of look what comes next is a great thing. And they help that. And also as leadership, one of the things I will tell you is, we a lot of times we want our best teachers in those advanced classes because that's where our kids are going to our IBCs and they're industry based. But I would tell you, a teacher that's in a principles class that turns kids off kills a program. Because as much as your counselors are gatekeepers to your programs, if you're trying to build a big law and public safety program, but that you've got this crotchety old teacher that doesn't get along with kids, doesn't do anything fun, is still trying to use old paper handouts, and they're teaching your intro to law public safety, how many of those kids are going to persevere after their class and go on and take the next level classes? They're not, they're done. They're going to move to business and industry, or they're going to move to something else. And now, you've got this great pathway with stuff that they could lead to, and they're not sticking with it because they've been turned off by somebody that's there. So know that those middle school, those college and career explorations, however you do it, whether you do it through general employability skills or Profcom or college and career investigations, whichever way you do it, those need to be some vibrant teachers that help your kids truly get engaged and look at the stuff and be excited about what they do. And so do those principals level teachers. Otherwise, you kill your stuff before it even gets a chance to get started. See lots of nodding heads. And I know sometimes, those things are easier said than done. Sometimes you have the staff to work with, But I mean, if that is your staff, somebody that's in one of those positions and they are not, staying current with the kids and they don't build those relationships, that's when you start really working T-tests and start, building in some supports and some requirements to get them where they need to be, whether it's with pedagogy or whether it's with innovation or, partnering with a mentor teacher that does things well, and getting some of that stuff in. What else? Any other thoughts on the recruitment piece? Questions, concerns, ideas?
I have a question, Ms. Harrison.
Yes, yeah.
My criminal justice teacher asked me, because she wants her kids to take pride in earning her endorsement and she wants to recognize them at graduation. Does anyone do cords or any type of, if you finish your endorsement, is there anyone doing that? She just feels like we need to have more publicity at graduation of the things that they've accomplished. And so she wanted to see if that was possible. And I've never heard of that before. So I wanted to see if there's anyone else doing it.
I know a lot of districts are doing that. They are doing colored cords. And they also do it for National Technical Honor Society. So if you have National Technical Honor Society, not just regular honor society, they do cords for those. And others were doing color cords tied to their programs of study. Anybody here specifically doing that?
We do. We have different colors for each career cluster.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's good to know.
I was going to say, we do the same thing. We have cords for our students, but we also ask during the ceremony itself, the counselors, they have their little spiel. And so we ask them to put in, if you received an industry certification, please stand. And so that kind of looks really cool too when, so many of the seniors are standing up. And so that lets the parents and the community see that as well.
I've not heard that. That's a great idea, Deanne. I like that a lot. And that only takes a few seconds. I mean, that's a quick thing to name. I mean, well, you could have quite a few IBCs, but you could even list a number of them out and say stand if you've got a ton instead of them individually. But if you only do 6 or 7 of them, I mean, how long does it take to do maybe 2 or 3 minutes in the course of a graduation ceremony to list it and have them stand in the next group? And that is great. Do any of you do signing days for your students that are going directly into career and industries?
We do at Grapevine.
What does that look like, Jessica?
It's very similar to an athletic signing day. We have, not this year because of COVID, and I don't think we're doing it this year. Previously, we have a space where it's called the 900 room, and we just set it up and parents can come, the college comes, very similar to just if they were going to play at a college or sign into a different college.
Awesome. And that they do that for specific apprenticeships or just if they've chosen their career? How do you determine who's going to be a part of that?
Going to a technical school. And so whatever school they're going to will come and recognize them.
Okay. Awesome. I think those are all some great ideas.
I have a quick kind of tangent question. How do y'all fund the cords? I'm just curious how they're funded in your district.
I think we lost Leanne.
So last year was our first year to actually have cords. In the past, we'd asked them to stand, and so ribbons and cords are huge, and so we jumped on that bandwagon. So the school district itself buys cord, like the honor cord type things. And so I reached out to that same company, said, hey, I need this many cords. I never saw a bill, so I'm going to make the assumption that the district itself paid for it, not knowing it was something different. So I never said anything, so we'll see.
I know in some places that if it's National Honor Societies, like they pay dues to join National Honor Society, same with Honor Society, and they build that into a piece of the dues, and that's how they do that. I know some of them that for their National Technical Honor Society, they do it as a piece of a fundraiser. So they have to do, as parts of that organization and things. And one of the fundraisers that they do as the group feeds the account that they pay for the cords out of. I know in some districts that districts are using, local funds that are doing that. It would be something I think you might be able to get industry partners to be interested in donating to, like your advisory boards, and asking if that was something they wanted to support, because it's recognizing them going into their industry, and it lets their industry be highlighted at like graduation. So that may be another place to look at doing that. You cannot use Perkins funds. I can tell you Perkins funds can't be used, but I think you could use your 199 funds.
We can't, not if it's for an individual student. Now, if it's something they turn back in, but we can't. That's why I was asking. I'm like, oh. And also students have asked and teachers have asked for like patches for CTSOs for their jackets. Are there any have any of the districts done that too? Because I think that's, like if they've been all 4 years in HOSA, or does that even exist? I know our teachers have asked.
I know a lot of the schools do FFA jackets, but it's a separate jacket from the student jackets, and those are either done by their FFA organization, that their boosters club pays for those jackets, or the students buy them or fundraise for them. I know places that cosmetology, I think, was getting, because they had cosmetology patches and stuff. You might ask Ellison Vincent in Birdville, because I was thinking that the cosmetology did, but if the kids are going to get the stuff, they buy them. And same with on the cords, you can't have students have to buy those. I mean, they're usually pretty inexpensive, but in a lot of the districts, it's part of like when they order their cap and gown, whatever they qualify, they have a list and this is what you qualify for. And if you want to buy it, these are the prices. And so, you can ask the students to do that, and then maybe have some sort of a scholarship fund that you've put together that covers those who can't afford to pay for it. And then you don't have to try and raise the money to cover all of them. Because I think the cords end up being like $4 or $6. Do you know, Deanna? I think it was like $6 a cord or something when you ordered multiple.
It was either $6 or $8, and actually I got really cheap because they're doubled. And so I just took them apart and gave them one. So I have enough for this coming year too.
Yeah, because we have some teachers that teach, they're CTSO advisors and UIL advisors. So they get the UIL patches, but not any like CTSOs that, our kids have been successful in or stayed in for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like, BPA and HOSA, and Eric, have you ever seen a HOSA patch? I don't know that I've seen, or I don't know that I have seen those, or Skills USA. It seems like something that those groups would want to do. And they all have their own websites you have to order stuff through, because they make money off all that stuff. So they sell all kinds of things. I've just never looked.
I've never seen a student get HOSA patches. I mean, they could put it, if it's their jacket, they can get their own jacket and then put that on there if they want. But they don't get that. They don't get the jacket for HOSA, for one thing. But they did. I know at Keller, we tried to, some districts kind of tamped down the cords, because after a while you could look like somebody who just came out of Home Depot with ropes around your neck. But so they only authorized certain cords for certain things, and CTSOs were not one of them. So it just depends on your district as well.
Skills USA, I think I've seen some of those patches. For as far as like letter jackets and stuff, our requirements are extremely difficult because we don't have to pay for them. So we really don't have a whole lot, but so many kids are involved in sports and band, and so they'll get their jacket through that, and then they'll just pay for their own patch to go on it. But we very seldom do we buy or put money towards a letter jacket.
That was interesting to me when I came to Texas, because I'm from New York, and every kid would get your letter jacket. You just bought it. It wasn't something that was given to you. The jacket that had your school on it, everybody wore. It was the letter, the big, like you saw in the 50s on the jackets. It was the big letter. So I was from Attica, so it was the big A, and you could earn one each of the 4 years you were in high school, and it had the qualifications. And the school just gave those that you put on the back of the jacket. And then if you earned it for their multiple sports, like you would get a pin that you could put on the front of the jacket. So like if as a freshman you were on a varsity, softball team, you could get the A, and then your sophomore, junior, and senior year, if you continued to be on it, you would get a pin that you could put on the front of them. And so I came to Texas, and you didn't buy the jackets that you had to earn them. That was very different. That was something that was unique to here, because up north, well, and I guess maybe up north, everybody has to wear coats a lot more of the year. So you got a lot of use out of a coat. So your family generally bought your coat as a freshman, and you just kept adding stuff onto it, and you wore it all through high school. Where here, a lot of times kids don't earn those jackets until they're seniors. They wear it for a month, and then they're heading off out of high school, and they don't end up wearing them anymore. So it's very different here how that works. But I know in some of the school districts, if you earned that letter jacket, like if it was for football, it wasn't the school district that paid for it. It was the football boosters that paid for it. That was at least how it used to be in Keller when my kids are getting old. They're older than some of you probably on the screens, but that was how they got theirs, and it wasn't paid for by the school. It was paid for by booster clubs that were associated with athletics or band.
I think patches and cords and like more recognition that way will also be a good marketing tool. In the long run, it's not common for CTE, but some of our kids do really well in our CTSOs and go to state and nationals, but their recognition isn't as if they were an athlete,
One of the other things we did, we have some teachers do instead of the honor cords is just a ribbon. And then they'll, like the culinary teacher, she'll use it like a Cricut and make it really super cute. So it has like a culinary thing, but it also have whatever certification they earned. So it's super cheap. And so she would just take that out of her supplies budget and do something like that. And so, I mean, that's a cheaper route and it's super easy. And matter of fact, once she set up the template, she had her kids do it. It's like, this is your ribbon. So they had a time where she taught them how to iron it on and everything. So, I mean, that's another option. The kids don't really care from what I've seen, either the cord or the ribbon. They don't care.
Well, all right, looking at my time, we've got a couple other things I want to share before we get to the end time. Since Deanne, since you were on, I wanted to ask, do you know the name of which drones that you guys were getting that you could share with Charles Mims, who's on this? Or if you have a link to what it is that you could pop in the chat for him, if he were looking at ordering drones. I started quickly going through my stuff this morning, and I didn't find the information on what you guys ordered went to the individual districts. It didn't go to all of us on the committee, so I didn't have that document.
Well, I mean, I wasn't on that last year, so we haven't ordered. I mean, I have a handout that shows what was ordered, but this was before the new, if you'll remember, Lisa, they were going to check and even see if we could still do them because of that new ruling.
Because of the new, that's what I wondered when they met. So I'm gonna have to dig a little further for you on that, Charles, because we need to. So I may be talking to a couple of people and see, did we find if it vetted through what was built outside the United States?
Yeah, last I knew they were still researching the ones that were on the list to see if it was even an option anymore.
Okay.
Well, I spoke to my AV teacher this morning, told him we were looking into that, and boy, he was smiling ear to ear. So I hope I can write a check that I can't cash with him.
So,
now I've got a question for you. This may be a dumb question, but if I have, like I told you, we have that safe fund here in Rio Vista that can provide things for the school that we might not be able to buy. What if they just bought a drone and they gave it to the program? There's no problem with that, is there?
Yeah, that rule has to do with using federal funds to pay it. If it is something that requires you to insure, to put any kind of insurance on it with your district, you'd be using government funds to put insurance on it. So if you got a big expensive one and it was something you needed to carry any kind of liability insurance on, that probably could, I don't know if that would fall under the law, but if it was some of the little smaller, less expensive ones that they bought and gifted to the because basically those are gifted grants from the community. Yes, I don't think it would be, that law doesn't apply to it, because the law, right? I know FAA eventually wants to lock down that there won't be anything that's drone related that's made outside the United States as far as the electronic parts. But the law was written, the way they're controlling it right now is you can't use the government funds to purchase them. The law didn't go so far as an individual, like if I wanted to buy for my kid to use one, I can buy whatever I want wherever it came from. Okay. So.
Well, all right. Well, I appreciate you guys for looking into that. And if there's any information, Miss Harrison, if you wouldn't mind just reaching out to me about it, I'd appreciate it.
And me too. We have an arts AV teacher wanting a drone too to record some video, and we're having the same issue. So if you can notify us, I'm sure there are people.
It's your district is who I'm going to be talking to, Vanessa.
Oh, okay.
For on the drone.
And I just spoke with Stephanie about that, and there is no update at this point. But I mean, you can reach out. But sorry, we'll keep working on that. I was like, who? I thought you were talking to somebody in the state level.
No, it's those of us that were part of the UAS. You know, the aerial robotics grant. So that became.
I'll follow up with her as well.
Okay. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again for a minute. We can stop recording. Can I do that with that open? Too many screens open at once. There we go. Stop recording.